No one remembers exactly when the village first disappeared. It was as if one day it simply ceased to exist. They called it Eldergrove, not because it was on any map or because anyone living in the modern world could point it out. No, the name came from whispers, rumors, and entries in dusty journals buried in library basements. Eldergrove was the kind of place people spoke about only in passing or behind closed doors after a few drinks. A ghost of a village wrapped in silence and shadow, located deep in the woods of Eastern Europe. The village of Eldergrove was believed to have once thrived in the 1800s. Stories say it was a peaceful community, isolated, but not troubled. The villagers lived simple lives, farming, raising livestock, carving wooden tools and furniture by hand. They had no need for money. They never left the forest, and rarely did anyone from the outside world venture in. And yet, one morning, they were gone completely. It was a hunter from the nearby town of Walnica who first sounded the alarm. His name was Merrick Zillisny. Merrick had occasionally traded with the villagers of Eldergrove wild game for dried herbs and medicines. Though the villagers never let him inside the village itself, they had a drop point near a crooked pine tree about half a mile into the woods. Marek would leave his offerings there, and by the next morning, something would be left in return. But one morning, the basket was still full, untouched. He returned the next day, still nothing. And on the third day, curiosity overcame his caution. He followed the trail deeper than he ever had before, guided by vague memories and intuition. The deeper he went, the stranger the forest became. The air thickened, the light dimmed, even though it was noon. Every step felt heavier, like something was watching. Then he found it. The village was there. Sort of. Dozens of wooden cottages, carved from local timber, stood in a wide, circular clearing. A stone well sat in the center. Everything looked normal. There were clothes hanging on lines between trees, a cart half filled with firewood. Doors were ajar. A candle still burned inside one of the homes, but there were no people. Not a single soul, Marek shouted. He waited. He searched from house to house. Everything was in place. Meals sat half-eaten on tables. A kettle boiled on a stove. He even found a child's doll lying in the grass. But no footprints, no blood, no signs of struggle, just absence. He ran back to Walnica and brought help. Police, town elders, volunteers. They combed the forest. They searched every inch of the village. No clues, no answers. Just one strange marking scratched into the inside of every front door. An open eye, with a crack running through the pupil. No one could explain it, and by the following month, the investigation was quietly closed. The report called it a remote community evacuation due to disease or migration. But those who had been there knew better. They didn't leave. They vanished. For years, Eldergrove was left alone. A cursed place. Maps stopped showing the surrounding woods. Locals warned travelers away. Over time, the story became just that, a story. Ghost tale told around fires or in hushed voices at taverns. Until 1978, a group of university students, 3 boys and 2 girls, decided to go camping near the Eldergrove region. They were skeptics, of course, believers in science. They laughed off the village stories and saw it as an adventure. On the second night, one of them vanished. Her name was Anka. She had gone to collect firewood near sunset and never came back. They searched until dawn. Her flashlight was found on the path, cracked but still glowing. The strange thing, her footprints simply ended. Mid-step, panicked, the others tried to leave, but the forest seemed to have shifted. Its trails were no longer where they had been. Its landmark, a twisted tree they had passed on the way in, now stood in a different direction. Even the sun seemed to rise at the wrong angle. Only one student, Philip, made it out when rescuers found him 2 days later. He was barefoot, covered in scratches, and muttering the same phrase over and over. The silence walks there. The silence walks. He never spoke again, and to this day, he remains in a care facility on the outskirts of Krakow. His medical records mention severe trauma, but the truth may go deeper, because several years later, in 1985, a hiker found something deep in the woods, farther than anyone had ever gone before. It was a journal, old, cracked leather, faded pages, but still readable. It belonged to a man named Father Kazimierz, the village priest from Elder Grove, and it contained the final known account from inside the village. The journal was brittle, bound with a hand-stitched spine and pages that smelled of smoke and herbs. Inside were handwritten notes in old polish, but the ink was surprisingly intact. The entries began months before the disappearance of the village and grew more frantic with each passing week. April 3rd, 1881, the spring thaw has arrived, and with it, troubling dreams. Many among my flock have reported sleepwalking or waking in strange places. I too dream of an eye ever open, watching from the forest floor. I try to dismiss it as the unease of winter's end, but even my prayers offer no peace. April 19th, 1881, Thomas's daughter, Ilona, was found standing in the well at dawn, not fallen, standing, eyes wide, speaking in a language I did not recognize. When I approached, she collapsed. No memory of how she got there. May 2nd, 1881, the forest is louder than it should be. Not with birdsong or animals, but with breathing. Some nights, I hear voices chanting beyond the trees. Always the same rhythm, always just beyond reach. May 15th, 1881, half the village now refuses to speak of what's happening. The rest whisper only to me, and always with fear. They speak of shadows that walk upright, but cast no human form, of people who vanish for hours and return, changed. I've taken to marking homes with the symbol of the eye. A vision I saw in a dream, cracked down the middle like broken glass. I do not know what it means, but I feel it protects. The entries continued like that, escalating over time. Streams became visions. Disappearances became more frequent. And then, June 6, 1881, today, a boy was born with no eyes, where sockets should be. There was only skin. His mother wailed, saying she had begged them not to take her child. I asked her who she meant. She replied, the ones beneath the roots. I fear my faith is failing. June 11th, 1881, we tried to leave today. 17 of us packed what we could and marched east. After hours of walking, we arrived back at the village, as if the forest had swallowed the road and spat us back out. June 17th, 1881, this is no longer a place of God. The eye, I have drawn above the doors, now burns with an unnatural heat. One villager said he saw it blink. Its children scream in their sleep. I have told everyone to stay indoors after nightfall. No lights, no sounds. We must not let them know we are awake. And then, nothing. The journal ends on June 20th, 1881, with one final line. Tonight, they walk the streets for the last time. I hear them now, but no one remembers us. Let this book be our voice. The hiker who found the journal handed it over to a local historian. But by the time experts tried to relocate the exact area where he'd been, it was gone. No trace of the journal, the clearing, or even the landmarks he described. Some say the forest itself rearranges to protect whatever still lies within. Elder Grove, modern-day investigation. Over the next few decades, paranormal researchers and filmmakers tried to uncover the mystery. In 1999, a documentary crew led by German filmmaker Elias Sterner traveled into the region to capture footage and interview local witnesses. They were equipped with cameras, satellite phones, drones, everything to prevent them from getting lost. They were never seen again. Only one camera was recovered, found lodged in a tree over 12 kilometers from their last known location. The footage, static, 4 hours down, near the end, a voice whispering in Polish. They see you. Don't open your eyes. A theory emerges. One folklorist, Dr. Mirella Novak, proposed a theory. She believed Elder Grove had accidentally become a thin place, a location where the veil between our world and another reality had grown dangerously thin. She referenced similar stories from remote regions in Russia, the Scottish Highlands, and the Amazon, places where entire tribes or communities vanished overnight, leaving only symbols, strange sounds, and one recurring theme: silence. Not just the absence of noise, but a kind of active silence, a presence. A force. One that noticed when people made too much sound, one that didn't like being acknowledged. The returning 2022 satellite imaging picked up an anomaly in the forest. It's a perfect circle of dead trees forming a ring nearly 300 meters wide. In the center, heat signatures, brief and faint. Then 24 hours, the area returned to normal. Nothing remained, but something had changed. Villagers in surrounding towns began reporting missing animals, shifting shadows, lights in the woods. Some claimed to see faces in tree bark or hear laughter in the wind. One elderly woman, whose family had lived near Elder Grove for generations, said only this: "They're waking up again, 'cause we remembered them." Pattern. Perhaps that's the key. Maybe Elder Grove wasn't meant to be found, okay? Maybe the stories were buried for a reason, okay? And every time someone tells the tale, every time a name is spoken or a journal is read aloud, we pull them closer and they listen. It was late October 2023 when a small YouTube channel called Night House announced they would be doing a 72-hour live investigation of a forest in southern Poland. Their goal: to find the real Elder Grove. They had grown a modest following through ghost hunts and urban exploration, but this would be different. They weren't chasing local legends, they were going into the heart of one. Their team of 4: Jamie, the host; Lex, the skeptic; Ava, the medium; and Ben, the cameraman, had spent weeks researching the Father Casimir's journal, satellite maps, and GPS coordinates shared by other explorers. They claimed to have found a pattern. Every lost hiker's final known location formed a rough ring, and in the center of that ring, nothing. No documented trees, no trails, just an empty black patch of satellite static. They booked flights, packed equipment, and streamed the entire journey from arrival in Poland to the first steps into the forest. Hour 126. The beginning, the live stream opened with a dramatic monologue. Jamie stood at the edge of the tree line, fog curling around his legs, saying, "This forest holds secrets that date back to the 1800s, maybe further. We're not here to disrespect the dead. We're here to uncover the truth. If anything goes wrong, we've left instructions with friends. Don't try to find us. Just remember the name: Elder Grove." The audience was hooked. Comments flew in. Tens of thousands tuned in by the second hour. They hiked for miles. Birds chirped. Wind rustled. Nothing unusual, but around hour 6, something changed. Hour 7 to 10, silence falls. Lex commented that the forest had grown too quiet. No insects, no rustling, no birdsong, just the crunch of their boots on earth. Bent behind the camera, zoomed in on the canopy and said, "It's like the trees are listening." Then they found something strange. A stone circle, 7 rough boulders arranged perfectly in a spiral pattern. Not man-made, weathered, ancient. But in the center was a black symbol scorched into the soil, an eye cracked in half. Ava touched it and immediately recoiled. "Something's wrong here. We should leave." Jamie, determined to go viral, refused. They pressed deeper. Hour 11 to 15. Lost, they began seeing things. First, shadows moving against the wind, then a woman's voice calling Ben's name, but from behind a tree he hadn't passed. When they checked the GPS tracker, the horror set in. They had walked in a perfect circle. Lex checked his compass. spun violently. Ava dropped to her knees and began to cry. They're watching. Jamie insisted they keep filming at hour 14. A siren-like tone began humming in the background of the stream. Viewers could hear it, so the team couldn't. Then the screen glitched. For one frame, a face appeared, stretched, eyeless, cracked like porcelain. An hour 16 to 20 gone by. The next stream segment. Only two remained, Lex and Ava. They were frantic, running, screaming, shouting that Jamie had disappeared into the ground, like the forest had swallowed him. They refused to turn off the camera, pleading with viewers to call for help, but no one could locate their signal. They tried burning a flare. It fizzled out mid-air. Tried calling their emergency contacts. All phones dead. Lex, the former skeptic, whispered, "They're not ghosts. They're old. Older than language. And they know we're here." Then came the final live stream frame. Ava standing frozen, eyes rolled back, whispering a language no one could understand. Behind her, the trees bent in an impossible arc, forming what looked like a door. Static. The aftermath. The stream ended at 2:14 a.m. on the third night. No one heard from the team again. A search was launched. Local authorities, joined by rescue teams and even volunteers, scoured the forest for a week. Drones flew over every inch of mapped terrain. Nothing. No tents, no gear, no clothing, no footprints. Only a single artifact was recovered, the scorched soil where the eye symbol had been. But even that disappeared during transit to the lab. The courier claimed he blacked out behind the wheel. When he woke up, the sealed container was gone, door open, with no signs of forced entry. A pattern repeating back in Poland. Villagers have resumed old rituals, hanging mirrored talismans on doorways, salt lines across thresholds. No whistling at night. No speaking of the ones beneath the roots. Most importantly, never telling stories about Elder Grove, because every time it's spoken, it remembers the listener files following the livestream disaster. An anonymous YouTube channel began uploading clips called The Listener Files. Each was under 2 minutes, always the same, distorted footage, then a phrase spoken in multiple voices. "We are not gone. We are waiting beneath. And now you see us." The final clip showed a list of names, people who had watched the Night Howls stream in its entirety. Many of those names were later reported missing. Back in Krakow, Lucas and Amelia sat in a dimly lit apartment, blinds drawn tight. The fog from Elder Grove still clung to them, not physically, but emotionally. Neither of them slept much. Their dreams were filled with whispering trees, children's lullabies, and the eye that never blinked. Lucas, once a skeptic, now pored over folklore archives, newspaper clippings, and digital forums. Amelia, a once casual explorer, now spent her nights decoding ancient symbols, most of them similar to the cracked eye they saw burned into the ground at the heart of Elder Grove. Then they found it in an obscure Russian manuscript dated 1681. Amelia uncovered a section that made her go still. The document described a phenomenon known as the place of the watching root, a village that slept under the soil and woke every 39 winters to drink memory and flesh. The entries eerily lined up with the known disappearances. 1878, village of Renswick, Belarus. 1917, Doransvale, Ukraine. 1956, Ravenskill, Romania. 1995, and finally, Elder Grove, Poland. Each incident followed the same pattern: a sudden disappearance, no bodies, a single survivor, a village erased from maps and minds. But the manuscript held something more disturbing. A prophecy, it read: when the eye awakens 5 times, the root shall no longer sleep alone. It will walk. Amelia turned pale. If Elder Grove was the 5th. Lucas nodded grimly. Then the next phase isn't disappearance, its migration. Asterisk. Soon after, strange things began happening in Krakow. First, the fog returned, thicker than before, blanketing specific neighborhoods, then retreating before sunrise. Then came the disappearances. A woman in District V vanished, walking her dog. No footprints, no sounds, just a leash coiled on the sidewalk like a dropped snake. Days later, teacher's class of 12-year-olds stopped showing up. Parents claimed they'd gone to school, but the building's security footage showed empty halls and chairs that moved when no one was near them. By week's end, 18 people had vanished within the city limits. Lucas and Amelia were certain Eldergrove had not died. It had relocated. Asterisk. The couple's apartment grew cold at night, regardless of season. Mirrors began fogging up on their own, and on 3 separate occasions, they each saw something behind them in the reflection. A child, barefoot, mouth open, eyes scratched out. One night, Lucas woke to find Amelia standing at the window. She whispered, "They're singing." Outside, the street was empty, but Lucas heard it too. A low, melodic hum, like a lullaby sung underwater. He dragged her away, closed the curtains, and bolted the locks. But deep down, they both knew locks wouldn't matter. Asterisk. In desperation, Lucas contacted the lone survivor of the 1995 disappearance, a Romanian man named Mihai Kalan, now in his 70s. Mihai lived in seclusion in a monastery. It took weeks to reach him. When they arrived, Mihai refused to let them speak until he burned incense and drew salt circles on the floor. "You brought the scent with you," he said. "The root has followed," he explained. The cracked eye wasn't just a symbol, it was a sigil, a living one. Once someone saw it, truly understood it, it imprinted itself on their psyche. From that moment, they were marked. The root feeds on memory, on grief. It doesn't need land, it needs witnesses. Mihai's final words chilled them. The next vanishing won't be a village, will be a city. Anymore, Lucas and Amelia fled Krakow. But as they crossed the border into Slovakia, they passed through a fog bank that hadn't been forecast. The GPS glitched, compass spun wildly, and in the distance, they saw street signs written in a language they didn't recognize. Not Polish, not Slovak, not anything. They slammed the brakes. A girl stood in the road, barefoot, in a white dress. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. When Amelia rolled the window down, all she heard was, "You saw the eye. Now it sees you." And then the girl dissolved into the fog. Lucas and Amelia didn't stop driving until their fuel tank was near empty. They pulled over in a small Slovakian town called Nisk, nestled in the Carpathian Mountains. It wasn't on any major maps, the kind of place people drove past without noticing, but they noticed it. It was too quiet, it's too still. The fog hadn't lifted. They checked into a small inn run by an elderly woman with cloudy eyes. She stared at them for a long time before saying, "You've brought it here." That night, Lucas reviewed the footage from their car's dashcam. The fog they passed through on the border distorted the footage, but a single frame froze his blood for just a second. As they passed the girl in white, the video glitched, and behind her stood an entire village, twisted, rising from the soil, like skeletal roots reclaiming the land. Buildings warped, moving, in the cracked eye. It was now etched in the sky, not drawn, not burned, etched. Asterisk. Knowing time was short, Lucas uploaded their full story online. He included the manuscript, Mihai's interview, and the latest dashcam footage. He didn't care about going viral. He wanted to warn whoever might still listen. The video, uploaded at midnight. By dawn, it was gone. Not removed, erased. From the platform, from backups, even from the hard drives. It was as if it had never existed. And that morning, so had the town of Nisk, asterisk, July 7th. Lucas is gone. I woke up and the bed was still warm, but he wasn't there. The innkeeper vanished. 2. I ran into the street, screaming, and that's when I saw them. The villagers. Not people. Not anymore. Their eyes were hollow, mouths open in silent song, walking toward the church, hands linked, their bodies twitching in rhythm. I saw the route again, not in the ground this time, in the sky, spread like cracks across glass, slowly blackening the clouds. That same day, people around the world began reporting signal interruptions during broadcasts, phone calls, even music streaming. All of them shared one thing in common: a flicker, a white screen, a symbol, the cracked eye. Then came the dreams. Millions reported the same nightmare: a foggy village, silent procession, a girl in white, and a song that ended in silence. Governments blamed a virus. Conspiracy forums blamed satellites. But the truth, it wasn't a transmission error. It was an invitation. Asterisk, if you hear this, don't look for us. Don't follow the signs. Burn anything with the symbol. Don't draw it. Don't describe it. Spreads through memory, through belief. If you know it, stew, it knows you. The root isn't tied to soil anymore. It's digital, viral. It doesn't vanish villages now. Vanishes people, minds, then cities, till all that remains is silence. Asterisk, the village of Eldergrove was the first known disappearance. But in the months that followed, dozens more followed suit in Indonesia, Brazil, Norway, South Africa. Always the same fog, always the same pattern, and always no survivors, except the listener you. So, if tonight you hear something outside your window, a hum, a whisper, a lullaby, don't open your door, because you've heard the story now, okay? And the story has heard you.